Thank you all for joining today. This is the second workshop in collaboration with the Anthropology Career Readiness Network and the Applied Anthropology Network. And we're really happy to have this series together with them. It's already been a very, very interesting start last time with Jennifer. And today we will have a workshop about learning how to build and grow your network. So today's all about networking, and the workshop will be led by Elizabeth, who will also tell you a bit more about herself in a moment. And I would just hand over to you right away, Elizabeth.
Okay, great. Well, hello, everyone. So nice that you could make it today. Today, we will talk about networking, how you can start your network and then build it so that it expands to help you as you are thinking about the kinds of work you would like to do. Here is the agenda for today. We'll have a brief introduction and then an overview of networking. Then we have an exercise, maybe more than one, depending on time. And then finally, we'll share some links with you. Upcoming webinars. The remaining 4 webinars that are part of this series have been scheduled. So the next one will be March 19th, and that will be on domains of practice, places where you work, the sectors in which you work. The month of April will be focusing on informational interviews. In May, we'll talk about changing your CV into a resume. And finally, the last one, maybe the most important of all of them, and that's talking about anthropology to people that are part of your life. And I'm Elizabeth Briody. I'm the founder and co-chair of ACORN, the Anthropology Career Readiness Network. And I also have my own consulting practice, which is called Cultural Keys. For those of you who are unfamiliar with ACORN, our mission is really to help students. We're interested in getting them better prepared for the work that they will be doing. And we have a variety of resources on the ACORN website, which you can explore. For example, the workbook that you see on the right-hand side of the slide is called Career Tools for Anthropology. We believe it should be in every student's hands. It's a very inexpensive workbook. It's available in Europe, in many places in Europe as a paperback, but it's always available in electronic form. ACORN has a speakers bureau. So if you want to learn more about some kinds of careers, you can go to our speakers bureau and just look through the individuals and their biographical information to learn about them. We have a blog. It's called The World of Work. We publish blog posts every 2 weeks, and we would welcome a blog post from you. The only restriction is that it has to focus on careers or career readiness, career preparation. So it's really all about careers. Could be your reflections on your careers, if you've had an internship or if you have had a work experience that taught you something very important and you think others would like to hear about that, that's the kind of blog post we are looking for. We run class projects which have clients. So that client could be part of the private sector, could be a government client, it could be a nonprofit client. But clients have problems. And so the class comes together during a term and tries to solve a particular problem that a client has. And we work closely with the professors to help them do that. And then finally, one other thing that we do is called the Departmental Advisory Initiative. And this service enables us to visit university campuses and work with the people in anthropology intensely, so that by the time we have left campus, they have a plan for how they're going to implement career readiness. And that process lasts over a year. So we want anthropology departments and programs who are really, really interested in changing the way they teach their students. So now I will move on to the content for today's talk. So let's begin by talking about networking and defining it. I've put a definition at the top of the slide. Networking is really about establishing and maintaining connections or linkages with people. But it's not just about creating the connection. You're creating that connection for a reason. That reason might be to communicate. It might be to get information. It might mean to build a relationship. It might mean to actually accomplish a task. There are at least two kinds of networks. One I'm sure you're familiar with are social networks. And those social networks are often with the people that are closest to you, family, friends, people that you go to school with, might be people on a team, might be people that are part of your religious community, could be people on social media. So a social network is one type of a network. A different type of network is a professional network. And in a professional network, you will have people that share the same kinds of work-related issues and work-related interests. So who might be part of a professional network? Well, it could be other students that you know. It could be the instructors, the professors that are teaching you. It could be people that belong to professional associations that you are part of. For example, Olivia could be a member of your network. It might be anthropologists that you know who are working outside of industry, outside of university settings. And it might be work colleagues, whether a current job that you hold or an earlier job that you hold. So now I have a question for you. And I'd like to have you try to answer this question both verbally and in the chat. We're interested in how you think of the differences between the kinds of relationships that you have on Facebook and Instagram and the kinds of relationships that you have as part of a professional network. So how would you respond to that?
So yeah, what are the differences between those relationships that you form on social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram versus a professional network? And if you don't know, feel free to guess too. All right, so I see in the chat, Joanna, more direct and personal. All right. We've got, what is it, Kokeb in the chat, motivations for creating, maintaining a relationship. Yeah, it is a different type of goal. I think that's Marcella, the kind of information you're sharing, the level of informality. We've got the differences focus.
So let's move on. How do these networks work? How does a professional network work? Well, the main thing to know is that the fundamental element of networking is reciprocity. And you probably have learned in anthropology courses you've taken that there are different kinds of reciprocity. And two of those are appropriate to a network. One is generalized reciprocity, where somebody might reach out to you to connect with you. And that person is looking for a piece of information that you might have and hopes to get it, of course, but then you don't really expect anything else from that person, and that person may not expect anything else from you. So there's no expectation of immediate return. In other words, that you're doing something for this person, but you don't expect that that person needs to do something for you. Another type of reciprocity involves an expectation of immediate return. So for example, if I were to do something for someone in the network, I might expect that they too would turn around and help me get some information or access that I needed, or provide advice. So in both cases, generalized and balanced reciprocity, there is return that happens, but it may not happen immediately. In the case of generalized reciprocity, it may happen much later in time, or it may happen with a different person. But with balanced reciprocity, it happens with the same person, and there is this expectation of immediate return. And so what does this idea of reciprocity mean for you? Well, it allows you to initiate a conversation, or it allows you to contribute some information to a conversation that's going on. There's a give and take when you have a conversation. Someone makes a comment, somebody responds to the comment. So in a professional networking situation, you might share some information about yourself. You may have a particular request, and hopefully someone will respond to that request. And then at the end, the nice thing to do is to thank the person or persons for any ideas or advice they have offered. Why are these networks so useful? They are useful for 4 different reasons. The first reason is they are useful because of connections. So how would connections work for you? You may need connections to find other anthropologists who are working in your domain or area of interest, because you want to find out what it's like to work there. You may need connections to organizations that, let's say, conduct evaluation of different programs or projects, because you know how to do evaluation. Or you may need connections because you want to speak to a hiring manager. So those are just examples of where connections would come in very handy. And then you would also use professional networks for information. You need information on what careers people from your anthropology program in the past are doing now. What are those alumni doing? You might need information on what are the entry-level jobs that people perform when they go into a particular organization. You might want to know what kinds of work responsibilities a person who is new to an organization might have to do. And you might need to know, how do I talk about my skills or my competencies or all those areas where I am really highly proficient. And then networks are useful for advice. They're any kind of advice about courses, advice about internships, advice about whether to take a particular job, advice about how to work with a boss who seems to be aloof, not very interested in you or your work. And then finally, the fourth reason networks are useful is for access. You might need access to a particular meeting. You might need access to a data set. You might need access to get on someone's calendar so that you can have a meeting with them. So all four reasons are why we network. And when you network, you need a goal. And every networking interaction will be different. So that means that every time you are networking, your goal might be somewhat different. So let's take a look at the second bullet. What is your goal if, in terms of meeting 3 local city administrators at a civic event? Well, you want to meet them because you want to find out if they offer internships. And specifically, you want to find out if they have an internship that is related to public policy. Why is that? Because you just happen to be very interested in public policy. And what better place could there be but your local city? Another example, you might have you might really want to get the name of a person who works at the local hospital because you have a class assignment and you need to conduct an interview with someone from that hospital. So again, when you reach out and network, your networking is purposeful. You have a reason for networking. It's not just to connect with this person or that person, but you are connecting with people because you are hoping that they will be able to help you with something. And then you, in turn, perhaps at a later date, will be able to help either those same people or new people that come into the network. So if you have a purpose in wanting to network with either a person or an organization, you should do some preparation. You should study up. So what does that mean? Well, it probably means learning about the person that you hope to connect with in the network. So learn something about them. Look them up on LinkedIn. Explore that person's website. You might read something that that person has written or listen to a podcast that that person has recorded. Or you may speak with people who know that person. In other words, when you know you want to reach out to a specific person, it's always best to know something about them. And then on the other hand, you want to understand about the organization where that particular person works. Remember, you wanted to learn about a hospital. You wanted to interview with a hospital employee because you had an assignment about that hospital. Well, if you were to go into an interview and you knew nothing about the hospital, you didn't know how big it was, you didn't know how many locations it had, you didn't know the types of diseases and health considerations that they treated. If you knew nothing about that hospital, it would not reflect well on you. You should know something about that hospital or about the organization that where you hope to create some connections. So there's easy ways to do that. You can get online and you can look at the website of that organization, take a look at their mission, their values, take a look at the photos that they posted. Who do they show? And what do those photos tell you about that place? You can often review publicly available documents. Annual reports of an organization are usually publicly available, and so you should have access to those. And then, of course, you can speak with people who have worked at that organization, and they can provide you with some insight. Now, let's say there's a networking event that's coming up, and we have one coming up, or AAN has one coming up very soon. And so what should you do before that networking event? So let's say you have a networking event. This event could be in person or it could be online. So with the in-person, make sure that any information about you online, professional information, is updated. Make sure it's fresh. Your LinkedIn profile, is it current with the work that you are doing? So that's one thing, and that goes for an online interaction as well. If it's in person, make sure you bring business cards. It doesn't cost much to make up business cards, and you can see the kinds of information you need. The main reason to have a business card is so that people will be able to contact you. So you put down your contact information on the business card. Could be your phone, could be your email, or both. It might be your LinkedIn profile, some way for people to reach you. And then, of course, if it's in person, you need to know where you're going for this event. You need to know how you're going to get there and how long it will take you to get there. I mean, this stuff is so normal. I hate to even have to say it, but I'm saying it because it's important. You don't want to show up late. You don't want to be dressed differently than everybody else. And it's always better to be overdressed, in other words, dressed a little bit more carefully and professionally than it is to show up in jeans and a t-shirt. Now, online, same thing. Make sure your LinkedIn profile and other professional information about you is current. Then make sure you have the link. Show up on time. Make sure you're dressed appropriately. And then, online, you stay on mute until you have the opportunity to speak. And then, of course, as you're doing today, you contribute to the discussion, whether you do that verbally or you do it in the chat or the Q&A. So these things are, in many ways, are very simple, but they are so important. That's why I created a slide for them. Okay, so what opportunities will you have at this event to network? Well, you're going to have two main opportunities. The first involves informal interactions. So when you arrive at the event, and this would be in person, you're going to meet people. And what are you going to do? The first thing you're going to do is you're going to smile. You're going to introduce yourself, shake hands, talk about why you came to the event, what you're listening, what you're interested in. And then you listen to what people are talking about and you contribute to that conversation. Ask questions, get answers. And if there are people that you sense are really interesting and that you would like to get to know better, offer them a business card. So that's one kind of event. Second kind of interaction at a networking event is, let's say there's a speaker at that event, the keynote speaker. You want to meet that person. So after the speaking part of the event has ended, there are lots of things that you can do. You can go up and introduce yourself. You can thank the speaker for the comments that the speaker made. Again, it's an opportunity to exchange your business card. Again, it's a way to expand your network and do so with somebody who had a primary role at this event. So this is my second question. What are some of the obstacles when networking?
All right. Is it Danae? Want to come off mute?
Yes, thank you. So it happened to me twice that I wanted to go and talk to the speaker after the presentation, and everyone was on top of them. So there was a big crowd waiting, and I was feeling like very not important to take more of their time, or then the time was passing because too many people were in front of me, and then the next presentations were starting, and yeah, I had to make some sacrifices. So
Right.
this is one of the things I encounter.
Yes, I know that that happens, and the best strategy is to wait for that person to leave the room and then run after that person and say, I'm so sorry, I didn't have a chance to speak with you, but here is my business card. I would like to talk with you another time. And then that's the end of it. And then you reach out to that person later. That would be the way I would try to handle it.
Yeah, and also if you have the opportunity, if it's like a conference, if you run into that person somewhere else, feel free to introduce yourself too. You know, obviously not interrupting if they're really busy, but that's an opportunity and something I've done before myself.
Yeah,
Go
no, actually,
ahead.
no, may I just a follow up, because you mentioned again the business card, but to be honest, I have been thinking that maybe it's a bit outdated, or you think that it's not to have a small business card?
I think it's perfectly fine to have a business card. I mean, otherwise you have to have your phone out and that person has to have her phone out, and then you can have an electronic exchange between the two phones, but that might be more awkward. So my recommendation is have the business cards.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I will say, as somebody who I go to a lot of networking events as a business owner, and business cards are still alive and well. There are a lot of digital options that you can do, but I will be honest, sometimes they are a little clunky, especially if like you're holding a drink and then you're like trying to scan the QR code and it's like not picking up and the screen's not bright enough. So there is also always the option though, if you know that person's on LinkedIn, and you don't have a chance to give them a card, is just go add them right after and add a note to your connection request saying, hey, I saw your talk, I would love to chat. I think that's a great approach too. Marcella?
Yes. Hello. I'm sorry. I'm with my baby right now, but hence the background. But I was just going to say that I've found that, hello everyone, thank you for talking. And also I was just going to say that I find that networking at academic conferences is a lot hard, maybe not more difficult, but it doesn't give you the access to applied anthropology networks in the same way that networking with potentially individuals in your community, or that you would see at like community organizations and stuff would, because a lot of academics are really siloed within academia. Like even my PhD advisor was basically able to give me like 1 or 2 connections to people doing applied stuff outside of academia. So I guess that trying to address, like if you're in graduate school and trying to get outside of academia, you might have to put in a little bit more effort connecting with people that maybe aren't by name anthropologists, but who are doing work that you're interested in or working in sectors that you're interested in, and really tailoring not just your research, but your experiences to that too.
Good point.
Yeah, that's a great point. Another thing I'll add to in terms of finding opportunities to network, I don't know if there's any equivalents in other countries, but Eventbrite in the United States, you can search based on where you live for like open, or sometimes you can pay like a small fee to attend a networking event.
Can you
So
put
it's
that
something
in
to
the
look
chat?
at. Sure.
Jennifer, could you put that in the chat, the Eventbrite?
Yeah.
We have the same problem here in the States, in the sense that you will not find many jobs with the title anthropologist. So what you have to look for are opportunities where you can do what the organization needs. You don't even necessarily have to tell them you are an anthropologist. You just walk in and you say, I can do this. I know how to do this. Here's how I would do this. That's what we tell people that come to us, that you have to go out and seek the opportunities because many people do not even know what an anthropologist is. All right, so just a summary of what we covered. We talked about networks and how social networks are very different from professional networks. We talked about reciprocity being at the core of networking. We talked about why networks are useful for 4 different, completely different reasons. Next, we talked about having a goal when you are networking. We talked about being well prepared when you are about to network with someone. And finally, we talked about some of the obstacles that people encounter as they are networking. So that's just a quick summary. So now we're going to go into our first exercise, and depending on time, we'll see how if we can do one other, but the first one has to do with networking to gain access. So in other words, it's one of the 4 reasons that we network, and we're going to have you observe a role play between Jennifer and me. And the goal of the person is to get access to a very high-profile public figure. This is not an easy thing to do. Imagine if you wanted to meet Taylor Swift. You know, it's not that easy. There are too many things in the way. So, what is your task? You have 2 tasks. Number 1, you're going to listen to the role play. And number 2, you're going to take a few notes. So we'll give you a little bit of time for that. And then we're going to talk about what you learned. So listen and take notes. And I'm going to stop the share for just a moment so that you can see Jennifer and me. And we have a very brief role play to do for you. So I will start, and I'm the person seeking access. I would love to interview Jillian Tett because I'm a double major in anthropology and journalism.
Yes, she's certainly a very high-profile anthropologist.
Do you think I should try to contact her on LinkedIn?
You can try that approach, but I may be able to help you. First, let's plan for a potential interview with Jillian. Contact me on Monday, okay?
Wow, I'd be grateful for the help. Okay, so now you're going to take a few minutes and you're going to think about what you just learned. Okay, who has something that they'd like to share?
It was really fast. Would you like us to repeat it? We could do it again real quick if you want.
I feel like she meant more in the sense of the agreement was quite fast.
Oh, okay. Okay. Kokem?
Hello, everybody. I felt like I got an overwhelming feeling that there wasn't a lot of specificity in the request. And going back to the 4 points of usefulness, I feel like the only point was just to connect. Like there wasn't any further information that was trying to be gathered. there wasn't any specific advice. I guess you were asking for access, but I think it could have just used a little bit of specificity and intentionality. So that was my
no purpose.
opinion.
Why did I want to connect with this Jillian Tett?
To chat, maybe.
I didn't express a purpose. Okay, who else?
And I think that's a good call out too, because I've heard a lot of people complain when they have people reach out to them for informational interviews. They're kind of like, well, okay, why do you want to talk to me?
Any other thoughts on trying to interview Jillian Tett? And by the way, do most of you know who she is? She's a very high profile anthropologist turned journalist turned academic. She worked for most of her career at the Financial Times in either the London or the US, and now she's provost at King's College, Cambridge. Janelle?
Good morning.
Morning.
What I liked about Elizabeth was that you said, "Oh, I'd like to connect with so and so. Should I try LinkedIn?" And so you kind of set like you weren't like totally dependent on Jennifer and her connection, or maybe connection to help you. So you kind of like said, I would like this. I'm thinking about doing this. And then it opened the door for her to say, hey, well, maybe I can help you.
Right, exactly. I think that's a good point. So there was an idea there. Maybe LinkedIn would be the way in which to connect with Jillian, and it could be. But in this particular case, we don't know we don't know how often Jillian looks at LinkedIn, and maybe there is a better way. So that's one point. And then a second point that hopefully came through in this dialogue was that Jennifer was trying to protect both me and Jillian. So Jennifer wasn't hearing why I wanted to speak with Jillian. Why her? Why couldn't I just reach out to some other journalist? And she was trying to protect Jillian's time. And she was also trying to save me from myself because I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know why I was reaching out to Jillian. So it's good to talk with other people because they can give you advice about what to say, what your approach should be, when you should do it, all these kinds of things. Shall we try another one?
Sure.
All right. Let's put this up. All right. So that was the first one. And now the second one is also about access. I wanted to stick with access because we often reach out to people for advice or to connect, but access is a different category. So in this case, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to observe Jennifer and I interacting. And the goal for this time around is to gain access to an employee meeting. The problem is you are not an employee. You are a consultant. So how are you going to get into that employee meeting? So again, same tasks, listen and take notes, and then we will talk about what we learned. Okay, so Jennifer, do you think I can attend that employee meeting?
Not sure because you're a consultant.
I was thinking of asking Françoise because that meeting would help me understand the culture here.
I agree. Why don't you ask her?
Thanks for your input. And let me know if I can ever help you out. Okay, take a couple of minutes. Think about that. Looks like Marcella's got her hand up.
Yeah, I do. I was just gonna say that I think that the way that conversation went really revealed that maybe when you're trying to ask for something like access to a meeting, you should probably start with your reasoning why, because the employee was just like kind of shot you down to begin with. And then when you clarified like why it was important to you, then you were able to get access. And I think that that's what, whenever you're trying to get access to something, you really need to front load it with the information as to why it's relevant, because people might just be like, sure, we don't care, whatever. But sometimes within organizations, there's red tape or there's bureaucracy or there's decorum that you must be following. So you need to make sure you're respecting those norms in order to access what you want to access.
Sure. So again, it sounds like purpose matters.
Question the chat around what role I was playing in that role play, and I did clarify that I was an employee of the organization. So yeah, in this case, you know, having a little context does help in terms of understanding what was going on there. I think the other thing too is somebody who's worked as a consultant, but also been on the other side as an employee. I think a lot of times it's important to kind of touch base with the person that you work closest with. So you're not going above their heads and surprising them. So in this case, you're talking to maybe the person that you're interacting with the most in that organization, and they could suggest that you go speak to Francoise to be like, hey, could I get into this meeting? So you have sort of the added benefit of saying, da-da-da told me I should ask you, and they have the decision-making power, but also the person that you're working closely with isn't surprised if you show up at that meeting.
Yeah, exactly. You never want to do that. So we won't have time to do any more exercises. There is one that you could do on your own, and I will just leave that for you. And now I don't think we have much time either here to talk about networking tips, but if one or two of you have some suggestions, please tell us. What would you suggest for yourself about how you could improve your networking? What would you suggest to a friend about how to improve your networking? And I just created this slide very quickly. You can take a look at it. Rosalie?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm maybe it's good to say I teach graduates of anthropology, so I'm a bit more experienced in networking than some of the other people here, but always happy to learn from colleagues. I think what I've learned in the past 10 years of work experience is that people can tell when you're not really interested in what they're saying or what they're about, and they can also tell when your kindness is fake. And I say that also about myself. I can tell when other people do that to me. But I think when I was young and I was starting out, I was trying to secure a career as a young anthropologist. I didn't know where to start. And the leads that never followed up or never panned out were the conversations in which I, as a young person, wasn't really sure if I really was interested in what that person's talk was about, or if I didn't really, fully know how to follow up with them. And if somebody said something that I understood what they were talking about or I was inspired by, those were always the follow-ups, whether they were with a business card or through LinkedIn or through an email, but those were the people who emailed me back. And so I would say that as an advice for young people is like be genuine. And I think that will get you far. It's better to have 3 quality connections than 300 that don't pan out.
Yeah, that's a great point. Be genuine.
Yeah, we've got some great comments in the chat. Elena wrote, be strategic about giving and holding space for others. Don't make it all about you. Be prepared to be a good listener. And there's several other comments around, being a good listener and being prepared to, Dirk, you said, be prepared to be out of your comfort zone and discuss difficult topics with others in a respectful and open manner.
Olivia, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for this. We have one more hand up. Do we have maybe very brief time to hear from Teresa?
Sure, Teresa, go ahead.
Hi. So maybe just one thing that I would like to add is for the shy people or people who in the beginning don't have that much confidence, is that at some point, I'm going to give a comparison with driving. In the beginning, nobody's a good driver. you need to start driving. And the moment you start approaching people, obviously it's not going to go smoothly in the beginning. Maybe you're not going to say what you wanted to say. You might even practice in front of the mirror and then not say whatever you practiced. But with each person that you talk to, you're going to get better at it, better at talking, better at remembering what you want to say. And it's just practice. Like everything, it just needs practice.
Yeah, that's a great analogy with driving.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
It's also a very great word to end it on. So yeah, again, thank you so much, Elizabeth and Jennifer, for today's workshop, and thank you so much to everyone for joining. The next workshop will be on March 19th, and will be led by Ryle, and it's about exploring domains of practice. Ryle, do you maybe want to give like a 30-second quick intro to what this will be about?
Yes, okay. This is really continuing our discussion of aspects of job hunting. Elizabeth has explained to you how to do networking. The point of networking for those of you looking for work is to find opportunities. That's what the network will eventually deliver to you. Once you have figured out where you might like to be working, and we'll call that a domain of practice or a domain of application for your skills, what do you do then? And so we're going to talk about how you can identify domains that you might like to work in. And once you've done that, how you can take these domains apart in order to understand how they're put together, so that eventually you'll be able to know where to go and who to talk to in order to find job opportunities. So that's what we're going to do on the 19th.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ryle. And we have another exciting event coming up already next week. This will be our first networking session. So as you might already know, the Career Paths event series consists of different kind of formats. So we have these workshops, we have speaker-based events planned, and then we have the networking sessions that are used, that are there for you to actually connect with other people, practice networking. And the one next week will be hosted by Claudia. So maybe Claudia, do you want to give a very quick intro to what's going to happen next week?
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. I wanted to invite all of you to speed networking for social scientists. Think of it like a speed dating kind of, but like without, not with the awkward small talk, and you'll have quick, engaging one-to-one conversations with amazing people who can share your interest in applied social sciences. I totally get why networking can feel intimidating. I felt that way too, and I still feel like that too. And especially if you have like a more introverted or a personality or so neurodivergent, like me actually. But trust me, like most of my job opportunities, whether in corporate roles or doing your own thing, have come like from networking, in my experience. I think it's an ability we can all develop with practice. So in this session, you'll meet one-to-one for around 6 minutes, and can have the potential to meet collaborators, mentors, or even people who can share challenges with you along the way. So yeah, you're invited to this speed networking session.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So yeah, again, this is a very low stakes environment to practice and to do these kind of things, maybe for the first time, maybe for the 100th time, but so you will find the links to register for these events in the chat as well as on our website, and we will also send them out again once the recording is done. As always, we would be really appreciative if you share your thoughts on this workshop and on the Career Paths event series in general. You will also find the link to that in the chat, and we will send it out again. And as always, you can submit a topic or questions for upcoming events on the Padlet, and watch all the recordings on the Applied Anthropology Network's YouTube channel, where this recording of today's workshop will also be in just a few days' time. Once it is ready, we will also send an email to you to let you know. Yeah, and if you want to learn more about AAN, check out our website, follow us on our socials, send us an email if you want to become involved. And thank you so much for joining. Thank you again to Elizabeth, Jennifer, and also Ryle and Acorn in general for the collaboration for this event series. And we'll hope to see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.